Hello, this is a beginner's guide to ComfyUI for Stable Diffusion and AI image generation. In this video, we will cover installation steps, basic usage guide, where and how to download workflows, and how to build a basic workflow from scratch. The question is, why to use ComfyUI? Because it offers better automation for commercial purposes and better performance. However, the downside are not conflicts, so trying to use online workflows may result in too many conflicts and errors that can take a while to resolve. Now to download ComfyUI, we come to the GitHub page, we scroll down to install, we just click on direct link to download. If we don't have 7-zip installed in our system or WinRAR, we can go to 7-zip web page here and download 7-zip and install it. Now click a direct link, save as. Now I'll save it in this location. We wait till the download is complete. So once the download is complete, we come here and we can extract this file using 7-zip. We extract it to this location, for example. We come here, we have the folder. We can change the folder location. Now, before we run the NVIDIA and start do any updates, we can come to ComfyUI. For example, if we have a previous installation of Automatic 11.11, we can use the path of Automatic 11.11 down here by changing this, by removing the example. Okay, we click yes. We can edit this file, which is a text file, in any text editing software, for example, using a notepad. We can see here that Automatic 11.11 base path, the path here, we can, for example, if we have Automatic 11.11 installed in this location, so we would have models, Controlnets, LoRa's, etc., all in this location. We copy this folder and put it in the text file in this location. Just copy and paste, then save. Now this will allow ComfyUI to use all the models from the Automatic 11.11, such as checkpoints, VREs, LoRa's, Controlnets, etc., because we don't want to download the same files twice. We close this, then we go back to ComfyUI and run this file, which is the NVIDIA in my case. Now, this will do the necessary updates and start ComfyUI. Now, initially, we might get some errors, such as we don't have the necessary nodes, for instance. These nodes needs to be installed. So to install these nodes, we can do that manually, or we can install something called ComfyUI Manager. Now, this is the ComfyUI Manager, which is a very important tool for ComfyUI. So we need to install this one by copying this here and coming to ComfyUI folder. We come to custom nodes and we just install it in this location by clicking, writing command prompt. So we just copy this line of code here and put git clone and clone the repository down to ComfyUI. Now, after the clone is complete, we can close the ComfyUI, okay, and start it again. This is the best thing, the best option. So we come again to ComfyUI, and we can see here that we can run NVIDIA GPU. So it will do some updates. Now we have this here. Okay, we can see now that we have manager. Now inside this manager, we can see something like install missing custom nodes, for example. But it's always better to do updates. So if we update all, that would be even better. So we can do any necessary updates for both ComfyUI and the manager itself. ComfyUI are up to date, okay? So we can install missing nodes. For example, we can see here that in the initial graph it told us that we have missing nodes. For example, if we drag any image or any workflow into ComfyUI, we might get these messages which tells us that there are some missing nodes. So we can install these missing nodes here, one after a time installing. So we can see here that it's installing the nodes and tells us that now our nodes are installed. Here we can see the log, and we can disable, for example, if we don't need a certain, sometimes we might, some nodes might conflict with the other nodes, so we can disable them or enable them once again. So we close. Now, after the installation is complete, we can close ComfyUI and run it once again, so that we have a clean run for ComfyUI. So we can see that after running ComfyUI once again, it has done some updates, and we can see that the nodes now have no errors, so we can generate an image, for example. Anyone who does not have Git for Windows can install it from this location as well, if you don't have it installed before. Now, in order to experiment with ComfyUI, it's best to, for example, clear this, this mess. One can build the entire workflow from scratch. Now, initially, ComfyUI is like this. Now, people can build their own workflows or can use other people's workflows. And you'll be user for ComfyUI, it's best to go and use existing workflows. Whatever you are thinking about, someone else might have already done it, and he might even done it better than you did. Okay, so it's always a good idea to go to ComfyUI, for example. We can see here, these are examples, for example, image-to-image workflow in painting, LoRa's, Hibernets, Controlnets, even video models. Okay. Alternatively, you can go to other sources such as OpenArtAI or Comfy Workflows. For example, if we come to this location, OpenArtAI, we can see that a large number of workflows, which includes video workflows that tries to produce consistent videos, for example, better videos or good images, etc. So you check these options and see which workflows is suitable for your own work, for example. Okay. For example, if we check this one here, we can see an animate diff workflow, so we can download this workflow, for example, okay, and use it in your own work. Now we can also find lots of ComfyUI workflows on Civit AI as well. We just search for ComfyUI workflow and we can find lots of them. Now to use the examples here, for instance, we come to any of these examples. For example, if I want to create an image to image, we come here. We choose this example, for instance. We just save it into a suitable folder like this one here, okay. Now we drag and drop this workflow inside this rectangle and open it inside ComfyUI. We can see that it has loaded the entire workflow, which includes the image that we want to generate an image based on it. So we can change this one by choosing the file, a different file, for example, okay? And we can change, for instance, the checkpoint. This is the loading the checkpoint. For instance, if I want to change it to something else, such as Dreamshaper 8, or whatever. So this is a ready to use. Okay, so I just can click on Q and it will start, it loads the checkpoint, then the VIE, then the case sampler, and it will display the image down here, for example. Okay, we can click here and resize it to see the output. To explain this workflow, for example, now initially we load the checkpoint. Now here we load an image, okay. The image must first be encoded into the latent space. Okay. Now we want to control the generated image with a positive prompt and a negative prompt. Then the case sampler will use the seed, use a certain sampler. Okay. Now a certain sampler and scheduler. Okay, with CFG scale. Now these are the settings. Now it will generate the latent image and it will be decoded into the pixel space and saved in this location, for example. Now this is a simple workflow. For example, we can delete this one, we can delete this one as well, and we just create a latent image. Now if we drag and drop this one here, we get a suggestion, for example, such as an empty latent image. So if I just want an empty latent image, we can change the image 768, for example, like this, batch size of 1. So we get something like a text to image, okay, and generate something based on this text and this checkpoint. Now in future videos, we will see more workflows. Now if we build something such as a workflow, we can save it so that we can use it later on. Now the saving of the workflow becomes a JSON file, which is a text file. For example, if we save this as workflow 1, it becomes like save as. We save it, and for example, we allocate a specific folder for workflows so that we can have workflows, we can have a library of workflows that we want to work with. So in the future, I just come to ComfyUI, for example, if it was clear, I just drag and drop the ComfyUI workflow, which is a JSON file, and we see now this is the workflow that I have. Now this is a JSON file, so if you just check it here, edit in Notepad, we can see that it's just a description of the nodes and their settings. So this is a text file, so it's not a dangerous file at all. Regarding the manager, now the manager can be used to do installation of missing nodes. It can do the update of ComfyUI. It can also be used to install models. For example, if we want, we can search as well. We can see, for example, if we want to 4x sharp, now this model, for instance, okay, we just click install and it will do the installation of that model. So it can do model installation automatically. So in this location, we can install any kind of model basically, okay, such as SDXL models, Controlnet models, anything, LCM LoRa's, any sampler, anything that we want, we can install it from this location directly or install it manually. Now, for example, if I want to add a node, we just double click on the screen, select the node. For example, if I want a K sampler, okay, or a K sampler advanced, we just click this one and we get a K sampler. Now the K sampler, for example, if I want to know what should I do here, what should I add? Now usually we should simply check what other people did first instead of trying to build everything from scratch, okay? For example, if I want a K sampler will receive a latent image, so I just drag like this and it will give us suggestions. For example, if I want a latent image, okay, let's add an anti-latent image, okay, because I want, for example, text to image. We can change the dimensions here, 6768. Now this is a latent image. Now if I want to add a model, I can drag and drop it here and just release, and it will suggest us something such as a checkpoint loader. Okay, so it will load a checkpoint and it will give us, for example, suggestions which checkpoint it wants to add, for instance. Okay, now if I want a positive prompt, just drag like this and it will give us a suggestion such as clip text encode. Now this is like the positive prompt in automatic 1111. Now when we do this, we can take the clip from this location to this location. Now the same thing applies for the negative. I just drag it here, release, and it will give us a clip text encode as well, because this is like a negative condition. A negative condition is also just a text, so it must be encoded in order to be created. Okay. Now, so basically it gives us a suggestion what's the next thing that we need to do. For example, here, if I want the latent cannot be displayed. So in order to be displayed, it must be decoded. So it tells us here, for example, that we can do VRE decode. Okay. Now the VRE, we can take it directly from the checkpoint or have a separate VRE. For example, we can here a VRE loader and choose a suitable VRE such as 840,000, okay? Or we can just use the VRE from the checkpoint directly like this, okay? Now the VRE decode can then be displayed by dragging here, and it will give us something such as save an image or preview an image. So if we want to save an image, okay, we can come to this location and we can save the image and display it at the same time. Masterpiece, for example, best quality, a castle in a mountain. Worst quality, for example, quality, ugly. For example, just like this. So we built a basic model. We just click prompt. Like we have seen here, we just forgot about the clip here. So it told us that we have an error. So we just click on this one. This is the clip. Now this is the clip. We just drag it here. So because it's the same clip, Q. Now we can see that it is loading the checkpoint. Now it's going through the K sampler and generating our image. So this is the castle that we have generated, okay? Now we can also fix the seed, for instance. Now in the K sampler, most of the control happens in the K sampler. For example, if we want to fix the seed, if we want to change it to have the same seed, we choose fixed or increment or randomized. If we want to change the number of steps, 25 or 35, we can CFG scale, for example, 6. We can use 6 or 7. Now, the smaller the CFG scale, for example, between 3 to 7, it will gives us more creativity. Okay. Now, 7 and more, usually it gives us the prompt becomes stricter. Now we can choose the sampler, for example, ancestral. Okay, ancestral is really good. We can choose the DPM ++. Okay, with Keras, for example, this is also very good. Okay, let's choose ancestral. The denoising of 1 means that the generation will become a completely new image. If we had an image to image, it's like the concept of image to image. Now, if we click Q, we can see that we are generating now using the same seed, but we have like slightly different settings. Now, if you click if we generate once again, we'll get the same settings because nothing has changed. Let's randomize and click again to get a new image. So basically we have created a very simple workflow. This is like a simple workflow which has been created from scratch. It just explains how the workflows can be created. Now there are many techniques in the ComfyUI. For example, if I want to duplicate this and get another image with another settings, we can, for example, okay, just click this one here. For example, if I want to duplicate these 3 nodes and keep the same connections, I use Control, okay, I will select all of them, Control C, I copy them, Control Shift V, we create the same nodes, okay? We have the same nodes using the same connections, okay, so that we don't have to do all the work once again. So now I can change these settings. For example, if I want a different sampler, for example, to see the results, how the results would be, for instance. Okay, if I want to fix the seed, for example, let's use it fixed. Okay, we have the same seed and we can queue. So we can see that it has generated this one and this one. Okay, so so by doing this, we can compare different generations, using different seeds or different settings in ComfyUI. Now, in future videos, we will do more workflows that can do more useful stuff, such as, for example, if we want to convert a black and white image into a color image, if we want to create a video based on another video, for instance, or if you want to use Controlnets or change clothes, etc. Now, I just want to point out here that we have extra options. For example, if we click extra options, we can define the batch count, how many images we want to create. Now, we can also use a view queue here, which will show us which queues are running and which queues are pending. So these are the basics of using ComfyUI. Now, I also want to point out something called auto queue. Now, auto queue will allow us that each time we change something here, it will automatically run. In general, I don't prefer to use auto queue in order to have more control over what I want to generate and when I want to generate it. Now, a useful node in ComfyUI is called reroute node, which can be used, for example, this is called reroute. Reroute node can be used to organize ComfyUI workflows, which can contain tens or hundreds of nodes. So, for example, we can have another reroute node, or for example, if we want to add VRE node, for instance, now VRE decode. Now, the point is just that it can be used to organize the workflow. It can also be used to have the same destination. For example, we can have the same destination here. Okay, so for example, if we had another case sampler, for example, drag this one down here. So it becomes, these become connected to the other case sampler, for example. So the point can be used to reroute the input and output, and can be used to organize the workflow in ComfyUI. If I want to resize this one or just to convert it into an icon, we can click on this location here and it becomes something like an icon, so we can save space. So this is very good for organizational purposes. We could also convert some of these values into a specific input. For example, if I can right mouse click on this one and convert. For example, I want to convert seed into an input. So seed becomes an input in this location. Steps becomes an input. Okay, convert steps into an input. So to add a seed, which would become an external input, which could be, for example, if I have multiple case samplers and I want all these case samplers to use the same seed value. Okay, so we can convert all of them. For example, this one, we can have another case sampler that runs using another schedule or other settings, for example. Okay, all of them would have the same seed. We can drag the seed down here, and we can choose, for example, random generator for list, for example, or whatever, anything that can generate a seed. Now, if this does not exist here, we can actually go to Manager, install custom nodes, and search, for example, for Inspire and install the Inspire pack, for example. Okay, alternatively, we can go to seed. We can add node or search for a node. For example, I want something related to seed, for example. This works as well. So the point is that we can have the same seed. Okay. For example, if I want to randomize it each time, we click here. If I want it fixed, we just click the number that we want. If we want to bring it back to become part of these settings down here, we can, for example, convert seed to widget, convert steps to widget, for example, convert steps to widget. So it becomes part of the settings down in this location. Now we can also change the color of anything by right mouse click and changing the color. For example, if I want this to be green, I want this to be something else so that it becomes more recognizable, nothing more. We can also change the shape of this. For example, we want to convert it into a box, change the title, for example. For example, if you want to try the Controlnet, we can download this picture. So assume we downloaded this picture down to this location. We have downloaded the picture and we want to use it in our work here. We can use, for example, if I want to use Universe, for instance, we can change the Controlnet, use the same things. Okay, I want to use Universe for the checkpoint. BRE, let's use this one, or whatever, then we can Q, for instance. Value in Controlnet, not acceptable. Okay, the Controlnet, we have to choose the Controlnet. My Controlnet is open pose. I'll be using this one here. So sometimes it just tells us with a red line, well, what's the problem, and we try to fix it, and we can queue. We can see that it starts to generate the picture. So this is a Controlnet example. So we just downloaded the workflow and we just applied it as it is from the ComfyUI examples. So we don't really have to do so much. Now, of course, we can come to this Controlnet and change. For example, this one here, we can see that we got a picture based on these poses. The point is that we just need to use the workflow and just make changes to this workflow. For example, we can change the text, we can change the negative prompt, the positive prompt, the seeds, we can change even the Controlnet and use it in our own, for our own needs, for example. So you can see here, for example, this is the result based on the Controlnet that we have. The point is that we can use existing workflows for our own work. We can adjust these workflows and make them our own. So we don't need to create these workflows from scratch. We can just use existing workflows or use these existing workflows and adjust them. If you are wondering where the files are going, basically they are going to the output folder inside the ComfyUI folder. This is the ComfyUI folder. We can just come to ComfyUI, come to this folder, and we check our files, for example. Now, this is one of the files that have been generated. Now, sometimes we want to change the layout. Sometimes we want to group a certain set of nodes inside a certain group. So we can use something called a group. Right mouse click, add group. So this becomes, for example, upscale group, for instance, upscale group. So it's just used for organizational purposes, nothing more. Now, once it touches the group, it becomes part of that group. Okay, so if I moved this group around, it can move. I can also resize it, okay, and put it inside this group. So we can say that that's something like, so this group consists of upscaling, for instance. We can add the VRE decode, etc. Now we can also use something called bypass. For instance, if I don't want to go through this part, we can use bypass, so it will not do the upscaling in this instance. If I wanted to work once again, we have to set group nodes to always, which will run once again. I hope this video was useful, and have a good day.